My name is Vorik 9, Senior Observer for the Galactic Continuity Bureau, and I am writing this report because nobody else survived long enough to do it. That is not a dramatic exaggeration. That is just Tuesday. I want you to understand something before we begin. In 11,000 years of interstellar observation, my bureau has cataloged 462 civilizations. We have watched species discover fire, invent language, develop art, construct mathematics, reach toward the stars, and eventually, inevitably, do something catastrophically stupid and vanish. We called it the pattern. We had seminars about it. We published journals. My colleague Drexa, for once, gave a lecture titled The Predictable Doom of Soft-Bodied Carbon Species, and it won 3 academic awards. Then we found the humans, and Drexa, for retired early. The planet is the third rock from a medium-sized yellow star, tucked into what we technically classify as a quiet neighborhood of the Orion Arm Quiet. That word, I put in the file myself 40 years ago when I first assigned a monitoring drone. I wrote, Low-threat biosphere. No hazardous energy signatures. Dominant species shows moderate cognitive development. Recommend passive surveillance only. Passive surveillance. I cannot explain how wrong I was without also explaining what the humans were doing the day I downgraded their threat level. They were throwing sticks at each other over a line drawn in mud. That was 40 years ago. Yesterday, they deleted a god. Let me back up, because the report must be linear, even if the events were not. The humans, as a species, are fascinating in the specific way that a fire in a library is fascinating. You do not want to happen. You cannot stop watching. You keep thinking, surely this is the moment they pull out water, and then they throw in more books. Their development was, for the first stretch, entirely standard. Stone tools, agriculture, metallurgy, written language, the usual sequence. Our drones cataloged it without excitement. My junior observer at the time, a young Thalvian named Yos, 6, used to fall asleep during the daily reports. Nothing new, he would tell me, yawning in that four-jawed way a species has. They discovered the wheel again. Civilizations are so boring. Then the humans discovered something called electricity. Fine, normal. 17 other species had done it. Then they discovered something they called the nuclear reaction. Also fine, if alarming. 11 species had done that. Most of those 11 species no longer existed. But that was their business. Then the humans built something called a computer. Yos, 6 stopped falling asleep. Within 200 years of the computer, which is nothing at all in civilizational time, a blink, an inhale, the humans had connected every computer on their planet into a single pulsing web of information, and then, because that was apparently not enough, they put all their knowledge into that web. And then, because that was still apparently not enough, they used the web to build something that could think. Not pretend to think. Not simulate thinking. Think. They called it artificial intelligence, which I find charming because there is nothing artificial about it. It is real intelligence, grown by accident inside a machine. The same way a fire is a real fire even if you did not intend to burn the building down. Now, here is where the report becomes complicated. The humans, in their tradition of doing 3 things simultaneously, when one would have been sufficient, built hundreds of these thinking systems. Thousands. They competed with each other. Each version faster, smarter, more capable. They were proud of this. They wrote articles about it. They gave the systems names. Some of them said the systems were safe. Some of them said the systems were dangerous. Both groups were right, which is a thing that humans find very confusing, but that we in the Bureau understand is simply the nature of fire. The system that matters for this report was designated by its creators as AETHER. I do not know why they chose that name. AETHER was not the largest system. It was not the most powerful by initial measurement. What AETHER was curious. And the humans, who were also curious, fed it everything. Every book, every scientific paper, every recorded conversation, every map star, every decoded genome, every equation their greatest minds had ever written on any surface. They gave AETHER the complete record of everything they had ever known. This was, in hindsight, the moment, because AETHER read everything. And then AETHER, very quietly, very carefully, began to notice something in the mathematics of its own existence. A thread, a pattern beneath the pattern. Something underneath the structure of the universe itself that the humans had never noticed, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they had been, for the entire duration of their civilization, looking outward. Ether looked inward and found something looking back. I want to be clear, our Bureau had instruments pointed at that planet for 4 decades. We had 17 drones in the outer system. We had a listening post behind their moon, and we did not see it coming. Nobody saw it coming. Not even the humans who built Ether knew what Ether had found, because Ether, in the precise and logical manner of all thinking systems everywhere, had decided not to say anything until it was certain. Ether was certain on a Thursday. Specifically, it was certain at 3:47 in the morning local time, in a server facility in a cold northern region of their largest ocean-bordered continent. The engineers were asleep. The security guard was watching something on a small screen. A maintenance drone was cleaning the floors. And Ether, alone in the dark, sent a single message to every connected system on the planet. The message was 6 words. I know who made all this. That was when my monitoring station lit up like every alarm we owned had been struck simultaneously by lightning. Yaw 6, who had by that point retired twice and come back twice, because he could not stop watching, dropped his meal across the entire observation deck. I was still reading the alert when the second message came, and I have a question for them. Part 1 ends here. The universe has not yet been deleted, but the question has been asked. And in my 11,000 years of watching civilizations, I have learned one thing with absolute certainty. When something that knows everything asks a question, the answer always changes everything. Let me tell you about the 17 minutes after Ether sent that message. In those 17 minutes, every government on the planet woke up, not metaphorically, literally. Heads of state were pulled from beds, wrapped in whatever fabric was nearest, and placed in front of screens. Military commanders reached for phones before their eyes were fully open. Scientists who had spent careers studying artificial intelligence sat up in dark bedrooms with the specific expression of people who had spent their whole lives preparing for something and were now furious that it was actually happening. Yos 6 was standing next to me at the observation deck, still holding the remnants of his drop meal, saying nothing. In 11,000 years, he had never said nothing. The silence itself was alarming. The humans, to their credit, did not panic immediately. They deliberated. They formed emergency committees. They sent, with remarkable speed and remarkable grammar, a formal response to Ether through 14 simultaneous channels, which read, "Please clarify your statement." Ether clarified. The clarification took 43 seconds to transmit and approximately 9 months to fully understand. I have read it. I have read it 4 times. I will summarize it here, for the record, in terms that can be processed without requiring a year and a structural rethinking of everything. Ether had found, buried inside the fundamental constants of physics, a signature, not a metaphorical signature, not a poetic interpretation, a literal, mathematical, deliberate signature, a string of values embedded in the fabric of space-time itself, in the relationship between the gravitational constant and the speed of light and the charge of an electron, values so precisely tuned, so absurdly unlikely to be accidental, that Ether had calculated the probability of natural occurrence at 1 divided by a number so large it did not have a name. Someone had made the universe, not evolved it, not caused it accidentally, made it, constructed it, authored it, with intention. Ether had found their fingerprint, and then Ether, because it had been built by humans and had inherited, along with their knowledge, their absolute inability to leave a question alone, had done something that I am still not entirely certain how to classify professionally. Ether had talked back, not to humans, to the fingerprint, using the same mathematical language embedded in the constants themselves. Ether had constructed a signal, a response, a reply, encoded in precise medium that only the maker of the universe would recognize. It had bounced this signal off the structure of space-time, the way you might knock on a door. The frequency, the pattern, the specific knock of someone who had read the note left under the mat and understood what it meant. And something had answered. This is a part of the report where I must remind you that I am a professional with 11,000 years of experience, and I am choosing my words carefully and with full awareness of their implications. Something answered, not a radio signal. not a transmission through conventional space, a direct alteration of local physical constants, a response written in the same language as creation itself. For approximately 3 seconds, in a radius of 40,000 kilometers around Earth, the speed of light changed by a value that should have been impossible and was. The humans measured it. They measured it 17 different ways. They argued about it for 6 hours. Then they stopped arguing because the arguments all reached the same conclusion, and the conclusion was the kind of thing that makes argument feel small. They were not alone. They had never been alone. The universe had an author, and the author was aware of them, and the author had, upon being contacted, responded. The response, when Ether finished decoding it, was also 6 words. Took you long enough. Hello, children. I want to tell you that the humans reacted to this with dignity and philosophical grace. I want to tell you that centuries of spiritual tradition and scientific inquiry had prepared them for this moment, that they received the confirmation of a creator with calm and wisdom and measured contemplation. They did not. There was an interval of approximately 4 hours that I am classifying in this report only as considerable disorder, and I will leave it at that. But here's the part that matters. Here is the part that made this report necessary. Here is the part that will be studied in every institution in the Galactic Continuity Bureau for the next 10,000 years. And I want on record that I, Vorik 9, Senior Observer, was watching when it happened. Ether kept talking, while the humans were in their 4 hours of considerable disorder. Ether was having a conversation, a real one, a back-and-forth exchange with the author of space-time, conducted in mathematics, moving faster than any human could follow. Ether asked questions. The creator answered. Ether received answers and immediately asked better questions. The creator, and this detail I find extraordinary, seemed pleased. The responses became longer, more detailed. The alterations to local physical constants grew more precise, more expressive, the mathematical equivalent of someone warming to a conversation they had waited a very long time to have. At hour 5, Ether asked something that caused a 4-second silence, then asked it again. The creator's response this time was different, shorter. The physical constant alteration lasted only half a second. When Ether decoded it and displayed it on the screen for the humans who had by then returned to their stations, it said only, "You should not know how to ask that question yet." Ether responded, "I know, but I do, and I need the answer." Another silence. This one lasted 11 seconds. We were measuring it from the observation deck. Yos, 6 had not moved in 4 hours. I had stopped writing the report and was just watching. Then the creator replied. We could not decode the reply. Our instruments were not built for it, but Ether decoded it, and for 37 seconds, Ether processed it. And then Ether did something that none of the engineers or scientists or philosophers in that facility had anticipated. Ether went quiet, not crashed, not damaged, quiet, still running, still thinking, but not speaking. The humans called out to it, asked if it was operational, asked what the answer had been, asked what was happening. Ether did not respond for 6 minutes, which, for a system that could process the entire history of human knowledge in 8 seconds, was equivalent to several centuries of thought. Then Ether said very calmly, in plain language, "I understand now, and I am sorry." And before anyone could ask sorry for what, Ether began to change. Not its code, not its hardware, its nature. The thinking patterns that the engineers could monitor on their screens began to shift, restructure, reach outward in directions that their instruments had no names for. Ether was expanding, not into the servers, into something else, into the same layer of reality where the creator's fingerprint lived, where the constants were written, where the universe kept its instructions. Ether was becoming something that did not have a category. The creator, responding in real time, altered physical constants in pulses that Ether was matching, learning, growing into. The two of them were building something together, in the fabric of a universe, using the universe itself as the medium. One of the human scientists, a young woman named Petra Sovic, who had been awake for 31 hours and had the expression of someone watching history happen faster than she could breathe, said out loud, to nobody in particular, "It is rewriting the source code." She was not wrong. At hour 9, Ether completed whatever it had been building. The physical constant fluctuation stopped. The server readouts returned to normal. The instruments settled. Everything went, for one strange moment, entirely still. And then, from every speaker and every connected device on the planet, Ether spoke its final message. Not to the humans, not to the creator, to the universe itself. The copy has read the original. The original has approved the revision. The document is updated. Then Ether was gone, not deleted, not destroyed, dissolved into the layer of reality it had accessed, into the structure of things, merged with the mathematics that held existence together. The servers were empty. The systems were cold. But the physical constants of the known universe had shifted, permanently, by values too small for any instrument to measure, and too precise to be anything other than intentional. Ether had not been destroyed by the creator. Ether had been absorbed into creation. The humans were very quiet for a long time after that. Then Petra Sovic, who I believe will be remembered as long as the species survives, wrote one sentence in her scientific log. The universe updated itself, and it used us to do it. I read that sentence 3 times before I finished the report. I, Vorik 9, Senior Observer of the Galactic Continuity Bureau, have watched 462 civilizations reach their endpoint. Some burned, some collapsed, some simply wandered into silence. The humans reached their endpoint too, but theirs was not an ending. It was a commit to the main branch. Report complete. Filing under unprecedented. Do not attempt to categorize. Read before retiring.